Good evening and welcome to the Cottage Grove Planning Commission meeting for September 27th, 2021, which begins at 7 p.m. First order of business will be roll call.
Commissioner Bigham.
Here.
Commissioner Fisher.
Here.
Commissioner Frazier.
Here.
Chair Kambata.
Here.
Commissioner Knable. Commissioner Rasmussen here. Commissioner Wright.
Here.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next item on our agenda will be approval of the agenda. If there are no changes or questions, I'll look for a motion.
Motion to approve the agenda.
A motion to approve from Commissioner Bigham. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Wright. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Carrying on. Item 4 on our agenda is open forum. This is an opportunity for anyone in the audience to speak on behalf of an item that is not already on tonight's agenda. So if there's an item outside of what we're already here to discuss, now would be your opportunity to step up to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and bring up anything that's on your mind. Seeing none, we'll move on. Item 5, Chair's explanation of the hearing process. The Planning Commission is a volunteer advisory group to the City Council. One of the Commission's functions is to hold public hearings and make recommendations on land use and zoning matters. The purpose of the public hearings is to provide an opportunity for each applicant and citizens to present information, ask questions, and express opinions. Since these proceedings are televised and recorded for the public record, anyone wishing to speak must step up to the podium and give their name and address for the record before addressing the Commission. Staff reports are prepared and provided to the applicant and Planning Commission in advance of the meeting. The first step in the hearing process is for staff to present a summary of the report. The applicant will then have an opportunity to briefly explain their proposal and provide any additional information or comment. Anyone wanting to speak in favor or against the proposal will then be heard. Upon completion of testimony, the hearing will be closed to the public comment. The Planning Commission will then discuss and act on the matter. 2 complete agenda packets are available for viewing on the back table. Please do not remove these items. The City Council will act on agenda item 6.2, the Views Apartments, at their meeting on Wednesday, October 6th, 2021, which starts at 7 p.m. Agenda items 6.1, a septic variance, 6.3, capital improvement program, 2022-2026, and item 6.4, a TIF boundary expansion, will be acted on by the City Council at their meeting on Wednesday, October 20th, 2021, which starts at 7 p.m. On to item 6.1. Septic variance for 8401 River Acres Road, case V2021-036, with Mike Marosla presenting.
All right. Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. We do have a variance application in front of us tonight at 8401 River Acres Road. The applicant is requesting a minor variance for a setback for a new wastewater disposal system. The subject property is located at the end of River Acres Road and south of railroad tracks. The property generally slopes down towards the river. You might have seen this property earlier this year. There was a variance that was done at this property for an addition to the side of the house that was approved by council and this body. The proposed addition was on that side of the building. So this property did receive that earlier this year, and this is just another one as it's going through the process. The septic system on the site has failed, and they need a new one. The subject property is zoned R4, low density residential, and is also within the Mississippi River corridor critical area, or as we like to call it, the MRCA overlay district. The minimum setback for any kind of septic system is 150 feet from the ordinary high water level. As you can see on the screen, the subject property is only about 175 feet wide. The existing on-site disposal system is failing and needs to be replaced. The existing system is pretty close to about 150 feet back from what we can see. So it does meet that, but the applicant is proposing to abandon that one since it is failing and construct a new one as part of this application. The variance request is 100 from the 150 feet. It's a 75-foot setback. As shown on the screen here, this is where the proposal is, the new field, and then this is where the house is located and the garage. This one is located outside the floodplain, as identified on the screen here. The existing field is within the floodplain. That is something I spoke with the Washington County that they pointed out as part of the application, and another need for this location for this septic field. It's worth noting that in 2017, the DNR updated the MERCA ordinance, and the city is in the process of amending our ordinance to adopt that. As part of the comprehensive plans that were approved in I think ours was approved last year, if I remember correct, 2020. Cities had to adopt this new MERCA ordinance by the end of this year. We're going to have this on our agenda at the next meeting. However, as part of that new amendment, septic tanks can be within 75 feet of an ordinary high water level instead of the 150 as it currently is. As part of this application, since it is adjacent to the river, we did provide the plans to the DNR. DNR did review them for consistencies with the MRCCA ordinance and their standards and found no comment and supported the proposed variance request in front of us tonight. That completes my presentation. On the screen is the recommendation. If you have any questions, I am here for them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Questions or comment from the commission?
Got one, don't I?
Yep.
Just
ahead.
to be clear, I think I understood you correctly, but if the new ordinance is adopted soon, in the next month or so, this is in theory complying to what our new standards are going to be.
Yes, Commissioner, that's correct. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. At this time, if the applicant would like to add any additional comment, they may step to the podium and state their name and address for the record. All right, then. My only follow-up question was going to be it looks like there's a couple of separation tanks. Are those going to stay in their existing locations and then it pumps to the other side of the house? Is that what the diagram is showing us here?
Yes, Chair, that is correct. Tanks are located here, and then we'll go back to the new field.
And are those separation tanks above the floodplain?
It's very close according to the Washington County, but it meets our standards. Washington County will look at that closer as part of the permit application.
I was going to say, because it was hard for me to tell from the flood map whether or not those were above or below that threshold.
Yep.
So, given our most current information, we do believe that they're above that threshold?
I believe that. Correct, sir.
All right, that's all I had. With that, if the applicant has no further comment, then we'll open this up for a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against the application may step to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Hi, this is just for educational purposes. Thank you. My name is Bonnie Matter. I live at 6649 Inskip Avenue South. And when you talk about the floodplain, are you talking about what we have been experiencing lately, or are you talking about the future? That would be a question.
The staff and the ordinance, I think, are adhering to what the 100-year floodplain is, according to the DNR's map. Anything as far as remapping that would be kind of above our jurisdiction.
Okay, would that be the DNR?
Be the DNR and the Minnesota or FEMA.
The DNR and FEMA. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Any further comment? Seeing none, we will close public hearing. Just to reconfirm her statement, FEMA and the DNR are responsible for remapping that 100-year and 200-year floodplain, correct?
Correct, specifically FEMA in this case, but the DNR is involved as well. And I believe the image on the screen, it says on here, the floodplain is from, this map is 2010. So I believe they do it as part of the census. I could be, I don't want to speak outside, but I believe that's part of it, but.
All right, thank you. Additional questions or comment? Thank you. Based on my knowledge of the area, this entire neighborhood was built, kind of pretty close to the threshold there. And I know a lot of these systems are non-compliant, so I'm happy to see some of the stuff getting updated for everyone's health and safety. If there's no further questions or comment at this time, I would look for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approval based on the findings and subject to the conditions stipulated in the staff report.
All right, we have a motion to approve, subject to the stipulations outlined in the staff report from Commissioner Fisher. Do we have a second?
Second from Commissioner Frazier.
Second from Commissioner Frazier. Additional discussion? Seeing none, at this time I'll take it to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. On to item 6.2, the Views Apartments, zoning amendments 2021-060, preliminary plat 2021-061, and site plan 2021-062 with Emily Schmitz presenting.
All right, good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. The next item before you this evening is actually 3 applications submitted by Ply Builders, a rezoning, preliminary plat, and site plan review. The parcel in question this evening is just within Hardwood Avenue and Harkness Avenue. It's about a 3-acre parcel. Some of you might remember or be familiar with the most recent project that was approved on the parcel to the south. It is Cottage Grove Apartments submitted by Apadan Development. The current zoning of the parcel is R2 residential estate, kind of a goofy mix, but also urban reserve as well. The applicant is proposing to rezone the 3 acres to R6, or high density residential with a planned unit development, or PUD. This would align, they're proposing around 11 units per acre, which would align with the guided high density in the land, or the city's 2040 comprehensive land use plan as well. The proposed apartment building is a 31-unit, 3-story building. As you can see, access off of Hardwood Avenue. This is again consistent with the parcel to the south and the project that was approved within the year. We want to make sure that these projects, as they're coming in individually, are accessing off of Hardwood Avenue to kind of keep the traffic off of Harkness Avenue for the time being until future development occurs within the Hardwood, Hardwood Harkness area, and we have time to better evaluate when it's time to improve Harkness, as well as keep that traffic away from current residents along that Harkness Avenue as well. And with that, right and left turn lanes will be required to be installed, similar to the Cottage Grove Apartments project to the south. The proposed project is planning to meet all of the city's minimum setback requirements. This includes the 100-foot setback from adjacent residential properties, so to the north as well as to the east. This proposed project does meet that 100-foot setback. Parking is being proposed at about, I shouldn't say about, it is 68 stalls. This is surface parking as well as underground parking, so meeting those minimum standards again in the city code. And then I'll just make note they are proposing the ponding in the northwest corner of the site, meeting the city standards for stormwater management. In addition, a preliminary plat is being proposed as well. This plat will do technically 2 things. As you could see, there's this goofy little, I'm going to call it a finger, that's the professional term, but this finger will be ultimately dedicated as right-of-way. So we'll kind of clean up that goofy looking parcel. And so this area will be dedicated as right-of-way to the city for future reconstruction of Harkness Avenue. This will give a little bit of wiggle room to actually center the road at such time it is reconstructed. And this again is consistent with the parcel to the south to make sure that the city is obtaining the appropriate right-of-way for that future development. And secondly, drainage and utility easement requested by our engineering staff on the southerly property line. It's 25-foot D&U easement that will be maintained for the potential of a sewer line running through there in the future if needed. And then I also wanted to make mention on this particular image, as you can see, there is an existing private drive that runs through a small corner of this particular parcel to the parcel to the north. And I just wanted to make mention that this private access agreement will be required to be maintained as a part of the project. As with all of our development projects, a tree inventory is required to be conducted. So this identifies all of the qualifying trees and the health of those trees on the site prior to any project being started. In this particular instance, an inventory was completed, and the developer is proposing to remove just over the threshold of 50% of those qualifying trees, but they are planning to mitigate those trees on site with planting of some additional deciduous and coniferous trees on the site. And in addition to addressing that mitigation on site, they are meeting our minimum standards for landscaping as well. And I wanted to make mention that they are making every effort to maintain the existing natural tree buffers as well as provide some additional buffers for the adjacent properties. So they're really keeping that in mind as they work through this landscaping plan with some double rows of coniferous trees and things of that nature. And that leads me to my next slide, which is the lighting plan, which we also require with development projects of this size. As you can see, they are keeping all of their light spillage, for lack of a better way to put it, on their site. Our code does, I think it's 0.5 light candles over the property line, which they are not doing at all. The applicant is proposing a mix of materials on the building, including brick, stone, glass, and then a mix of LP Hardy siding. They wanted to be consistent with the project to the south, but of course be unique as well. I'll make mention that they are proposing around 47% Class 1 materials, so that brick, stone, glass on this proposed project. This is in line with recently approved projects similar to Grove 80, the Cottage Grove Apartments just the south, as well as the Legends, which are all around that 40% Class 1 material. So this applicant is proposing just above that 40% to be consistent with previously approved projects. Given the PUD request for this particular project, the additional height that is being requested, so our ordinance allows for a maximum of 35 feet in height. So this proposed project would be higher than that 35 feet. So with those additional Class 1 materials, it's a little bit of give and take again, as we've described in the past for that PUD. We wanted to make sure that we could see this project as a whole. What is it going to look like from Hardwood Avenue? What's it going to look like from Harkness Avenue? So the developer has provided this image of the elevation. So this first one is if you were standing on Hardwood Avenue, what would the site look like? So he's included the Cottage Grove Apartments project as well as their proposed project. So you can see kind of that elevation difference. And again, the orientation of the building on the site really makes a difference with that visual impact from the right-of-way as well. And then again, he did provide from Harkness Avenue as well what that visual impact is. And as you can see clearly, the elevations of the road really do make a difference of that visual impact to this proposed project as well. So the height would be consistent with the area in the recently approved project. And finally, oops. Jumped ahead there. I wanted to touch on the current development and kind of what that looks like for future development in the area. So I'll start with just mentioning again the Harkness Small Area Study, which was completed and approved in 2017. So this modified approximately 55 acres of land and guided it for medium and high density development at that time. At the time this was addressed, it ensured that the council was meeting their strategic plan to provide a mix of housing opportunities in the city of Cottage Grove and ultimately set the city of Cottage Grove up for future growth and development. I'll mention at that time, a lot of those images in that concept did reflect an assemblage type development. So as we're starting to see this area develop on a parcel by parcel basis, we thought it was best to retake a look at what this area might look like as it continues to develop and how we can sort of guide developers and even start thinking about it as staff. So we put together, excuse me, a couple of scenarios, and I want to make very clear that these are very conceptual. We just had to get an idea of, most specifically, access for development of these future parcels on both the east and west side of Harkness Avenue, where those might best access, and then the alignment of Harkness Avenue. What might that look like, and how can we best plan for that? So in my scenario A, I'll make note, it is showing the remaining 4 parcels on the west side of Harkness Avenue, accessing onto Harkness Avenue. Given the city's storm ponding along Hardwood Avenue, that completely restricts any access for these parcels as they develop onto Hardwood Avenue. A scenario B might look something like this, where Harkness Avenue maybe has a little bit of a bump in the road, for lack of a better way to put it. But again, this is all dependent on development. Does it come in as an assemblage with all of these parcels, or are they going to develop individually? So this type of alignment will all be dependent on that process. And finally, a scenario C, just to give another thought as to how this area might look as it develops. Maybe Harkness Avenue is split and you have a couple of smaller roundabouts, so you still have access from the north and the south, but it might look a little different. And again, this is all dependent on how these parcels develop in the future, but it really starts to help us to think about this and how this might look as we're shifting our gears to start to look at this area a little bit differently as it develops individually as opposed to as a whole. So with that being said, I will leave the recommendation before you this evening. I know the applicant is here if you have some additional questions for them. Otherwise, staff is available as well for any questions.
Thank you very much. Questions or comment for staff? Commissioner Rasmussen?
I've got a quick question regarding the city utilities, and I guess it kind of relates to those 4 remaining parcels. Is there sewer and water that runs along Harkness, or I believe these current projects are coming off Hardwood Avenue, correct?
Yeah. Mr. Chair, Commissioner Rasmussen, I'm going to defer to the Assistant City Engineer, Amanda Meyer, who is here as well. She'll better be able to speak to that.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. There is sanitary sewer and water main stubbed to, where did that thing go? I'm sorry. Haven't used this before. The Villas of Hidden Valley, which is down in this location, sewer and water were extended down Harkness to the edge of that parcel. So the sewer and water would need to be extended from that location for these parcels on the western side of Harkness.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Additional questions or comment? We'll turn this over to the applicant if they would like to add any additional information. They may do so. Step to the podium, state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. Todd with TCO Design, 3305 Highway 169, Suite 222, Plymouth 55441. Don't really have any additional comments. I think Ms. Schmidt did a great job on that. So I just wanted to introduce myself, and if you had any questions for me, I can answer those now or later.
So you're here on behalf of the developer, is that correct?
Yes, sorry, yes, I'm a representative of Pali Builders, yes.
And I was gonna just ask some questions regarding the overall size and design of the units themselves. Are you comfortable answering some of those questions?
Sure.
So it's my understanding these are gonna be market rate. Are they gonna be a mix of, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedrooms?
Yes.
And do you know approximate square footages?
Yes, so we have one bedroom. These are market rate, that's correct, Chair. One bedroom, and that one is a smaller one at about 600, 650. I'm sorry, I don't have the exact ones at the top of my head. We have 21, 2 bedrooms, and those are all at about 1,100, just under 1,100 square feet. And then there are 9 3-bedrooms, and those range from approximately 1,250 to approximately 1,600.
It's rather large.
Yes.
Okay. And then, from the time you guys start a project, how long are you guys typically out for completion?
So this one being a little bit larger is going to get spread out a little bit, and it's going to depend on how, the process of a number of things that have to get done this year. So the hope is to get grading started, start ordering precast planks and some of those other things that take some time. The hope would be, I would say realistically at this point, would probably be around next fall, August, July at the soonest. Fast as possible as far as this builder and developer is concerned, but realistically, that would be my ballpark.
All right, thank you. Additional questions for the applicant? Okay. At this time, we'll open it for public hearing.
Thank you.
Anyone wishing to speak for or against the application may step to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Can I ask questions?
Certainly, but please do so at the podium.
Yeah, I'll go to the podium. Thank you very much.
You'll have to state your name and address again for the record.
Sure, no problem. My name is Bonnie Matter, 6649 Inskip Avenue South. And again, I'm using this as a learning opportunity. One of the questions I had was how many trees exactly are we taking down?
The way their accounting of the trees works is they have to replace the trees that they take down. So we can defer back to staff when they get back up. They can answer that question for you.
Okay.
But in every other instance, the developer either needs to replace those trees or contribute to a fund so that the city can replant in other areas of the community.
Yeah, because I assume that area would become hotter, you know what I mean, by removing those trees.
Right,
So-
and what happens is, depending on the size of the structure, sometimes they can't put all the trees back, and then the developer basically pays into a fund so that they can be reallocated elsewhere. But the intent is always to try and keep those number of trees on site.
Okay, thank you very much. And one more question. This is for Todd. And is there a reason why they wouldn't use steel for the siding versus hardy board?
We'll have those questions addressed at the podium again.
Thank you, sorry.
But good question.
I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Very much.
If the applicant would like to approach the podium again and maybe address that question.
Chair and Commissioners. That was kind of a choice of the builder. The builder is more of a residential builder. He does small apartment buildings, duplexes, and single-family homes and things like that. And so that's his comfort level, is using more of those materials that are used in single-family homes.
Firmly, correct?
Say that again?
How can be recycled?
LP products, I'm not sure, to be honest with you. Yeah, it's a pressed wood product. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, we following the city's things like that. But again, that was the material he was comfortable with.
The city?
The builder developer.
Okay.
The city does, just to follow up on that question, the city does have standards for the quality of building materials on certain structures. So when an applicant meets with the city gives them guidance on what materials would be acceptable so that it falls within a certain minimum standard.
Thank you.
Additional questions or comment? Have you state your name and address for the record again, please?
Hey, good evening, Planning Commission. I'm Matthew Hislop. I'm a Cottage Grove resident here at 7560 Harkness Avenue South. And previously I had written a letter to the Planning Commission and as well as the City Council. And simply wanted to attend tonight, read my letter and open up any comments that we can share afterwards following that. So my points don't directly coincide quite as much with Pillai, but in tandem with that is really the future development of Harkness Avenue South in our area there. So, as I said, I'll simply read my letter here this evening. My wife Katie and our children and I, again, live at 7560 Harkness Avenue South, Cottage Grove. We've been citizens here in Cottage Grove for the past 18 years. When we purchased our home on Harkness Avenue South, that was 6 years ago. What I wanted to express is at that time, that surrounding area was single-family, low-density, really a neighborhood of rural or small acreage parcels. So although we did not support the change and fully communicated that position with the city council a few years ago, the land use on Harkness Avenue South was changed to our current high-density residential conditions now here today. This is not a neighborhood character that we signed up for when we bought our home. With that said, we do have several concerns and questions related to the city's high-density land use guidance on Harkness Avenue South, along with the current and future development of Harkness Avenue South as a whole, the street, the roadway there. A major part of the land use re-guidance discussion a few years ago, I sat right here, I got up and I spoke, was really orchestrated around a master plan aspect and related graphics, including streets, utilities, things of that nature. These concepts, they really were used as a justification or demonstrated benefits, and were used to solicit and support really a cohesive development of the area with the idea of benefiting those involved. The reality of proposed development to date, since that time, has been more fragmented, piecemeal development process. So we are genuinely disappointed in the city of Cottage Grove's acceptance of that process so far, and it's in part perhaps lack of vision given the master plan concept that really was previously promoted to us. Okay, the city's decision to re-guide and promote the redevelopment not only has had a negative impact on our lifestyle choice to live in that small acreage neighborhood, but also has a very real risk of having a substantial negative impact on our property value. Our home sits on 1.5 acres. It's approximately 80 by 150 wide and 500 feet deep. It really originally was created for single-family land use as part of a subdivision, actually, of now the proposed play property. The parcel's size and shape has substantial challenges in its ability to be redeveloped as a freestanding parcel. Now, we sit just directly north of the Ply development that we're speaking on here this evening. For this reason, the area's high density or re-guidance has put a potential disadvantage to us with limited options, given the size and the shape of our particular parcel. All right. One, we would have to, at this point, would have to be forced to develop at the discretion of the future developer of the parcel to our north. Or, essentially, we would become kind of bounded by apartment buildings on both sides with limited redevelopment potential. We would actually kind of become an island, call it between 4-story buildings. So you can appreciate that legitimate home buyers don't favor apartment buildings on both sides of a 120-foot wide parcel or home, and that has legitimate negative value impact. Again, something to consider as future development moves to the north on Harkness Avenue South. So again, we have genuine concerns on our lifestyle, our home, our risk of negative financial impact. Absent of a city mandated kind of master plan, we question the city of Cottage Grove on how our parcel is to be viably redeveloped in the future at 1.5 acres. And at a property sale value similar to its pre-land use change value. For example, a small acreage home surrounded by other similar homes as it is today. Also, given the abutting proposed development, how does our property get redeveloped, access, and trunk utilities? Now, Emily spoke on that just a bit ago, kind of the concept moving forward, but as of the conversation even a few weeks back, I don't think that question had been answered in our discussions anyway. Additionally, how is the future redevelopment of the actual roadway, trunk utilities of Harkness South to be paid for? Okay. What's the timing of the improvements on Harkness Avenue? Has the city of Cottage Grove collected funding for the future redevelopment of the road from the first 2 developers? And will this also be paid by future developers? So our strong ask of the city of Cottage Grove is that the city acknowledge that our parcel is unique from some of the other 5 or 10 acre parcels along that road, and that the change to high density land use causes unique challenges for us, okay? Moving forward, we ask the city to return to its kind of original vision of a cohesive redevelopment of Harkness Avenue South, and include us in any and all conversations on development to the north of our parcel, and that the city instructs staff to require abutting development provide for co-development with our parcel. In the absence of this, the city's guidance to high density really creates a legitimate risk to our home being isolated amongst a sea of high density buildings. That doesn't fare well for the city, really, it doesn't fare well for us. So the development plans for Harkness Avenue area, they continue to be an unwelcome change. Okay, I stated it 3 years ago, and here I am still. But change of the way to our lives. The proposed challenges also create a unique risk and concern to our home value financial loss to our families. So we would simply like, our questions, concerned, realized, addressed, and answered by the city of Cottage Grove. And I'd be open to any comments that the Planning Commission has for us this evening.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Your letter was included in our packet, and based on your comment, it sounds like the city has responded to you regarding the letter?
The city has not responded to us regarding the letter. No, it was written and by our request added to this evening's packet for the Planning Commission, as well as the City Council meeting on October 6th.
So it was read at the city, so it's going to be read at the council meeting on October 6th, is that what you were told? Or
I've asked that it would be included in the packet.
Right.
Yeah.
Typically, the staff would respond. Some of the questions you're asking are kind of, 30,000-foot questions that might be difficult to give you a precise answer. Some of the challenges with tying development of the neighboring property or sale of a neighboring property to yours is, now you're basically constraining somebody else's private property rights. So as far as what the city could or could not mandate on that, it would probably require, further conversation with the city as far as any stipulations that could or would be applied. So at this time, I would ask that staff reach out to you and address as many of these questions as they can in a timely manner. Outside of that, I don't know that they're going to be able to satisfy all of those questions that you've asked here in tonight's meeting.
Understood. I did want to bring it to the group's attention and be able to speak openly on against some of our
No, I
concerns
appreciate your
moving forward.
participation. And I'm happy you're here and I'm happy you've been here. Redevelopment is hard from a standpoint of, if you've been there for a long time and this is, again, what you're used to. Every time raw land gets developed, we have the same types of sentiments from neighboring households or property owners. They liked that it was a farm field for 100 years. Well, prior to their homes being built, theirs were also farm fields. So development is tricky, and we try and mitigate as much of this as possible. It's impossible to never bump into each other when we're doing these things, though. However, I think the city has been good in past applications about bringing in neighboring property owners. So I'm confident that we can try and mitigate as many of your concerns as possible.
Very good. Yeah, we appreciate that. And essentially, everybody likes development at points until it's in their own backyard. And in our particular situation, it quite frankly is our backyard and our home. Not only the abutting properties, but our actual home.
I'm curious, who owns the remaining acreage behind you?
There is no acreage behind us as into the west.
So on the north side, are you adjacent to the park?
No, we are on the east. We're between Harkness Avenue and Hardwood Avenue.
Oh, gotcha.
We neighbor, our southern border is the Pillai northern border.
Okay.
We connect there.
And so who's to the north of you then?
To the north of us are continue to be 3 private resident homes and parcels.
Okay.
I have a question for you before you sit down. I'm curious to know, you said you purchased 6 years ago. Was there any sort of research done with you and your wife as to where the development was moving in the city of Cottage Grove in that area at that point when you purchased the parcel?
No, when we purchased the parcel, there was no indication to us or that we were able to find or research or discover through a very natural process in terms of this type of future development. When we bought the home, there was absolutely no talk of, what do we call this now, R6 today, the high density. At that time, that area had been forever what it was. And essentially our future anticipations was that, perhaps to the south on those parcels, single-family homes would be built as the area was guided, zoned, to be. So that was absolutely our intent, or our anticipation when we bought that home. Yeah, the conversations about high density didn't surface until, about, was it 3 years ago in the 2040 comp plan? That's the first time it came to our attention.
I'm curious to know, and maybe somebody from staff can answer, what the 2030 comp plan showed that piece of property as. I don't know if that's even relevant at this point, but I'm just wondering, because from what you're saying, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you were talking about the redevelopment of Harkness and how you were kind of told one thing was going to happen, and you maybe feel like something else has taken place than what you originally were told. Am I understanding you right, or?
I think we're putting together a couple different time periods. When we first purchased our home, right, it was single family residential. That's it, large acre lot, or small medium acre lots. Then at the time of in 2017, when we were here for the 2040 comp plan discussions, at that time, right, it became re-guided to the high-density concepts of the future. So that conversation had never taken place in our minds prior to that. And, from that time moving forward, we spoke our minds in terms of how we felt about that direction.
Chair and members of the Planning Commission, just for some clarification, due to Commissioner Fisher's question about the 2030 comprehensive plan, that was done a lot of years way before, so it's really not relevant, right? Since, as the residents stated, the Harkness Small Area Study took place in 2017.
Okay.
So it would only appear on the current 2040 comprehensive plan, and that's our current guiding document required by Met Council.
Sure.
So the 2030 isn't really relevant anymore in that regards.
Right.
And the underlying zoning has always been of the single family. It wasn't until the 2017 small area study where that changed, because our comprehensive plan, as you know, is our guiding document as we move in the future.
Yep.
And so that's where it's reflected.
Sure.
And that, thank you for that background and kind of insight. And as we purchased our home, a number of years prior to that small area study, we were very intentional in buying that particular home because of its surrounding and lot size and in wooded nature and lifestyle that it provided.
Again, I think your bullet pointed list of concerns is going to require a very detailed answer that I don't think we can achieve tonight.
Understood. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, but I appreciate your comment and your concern, and in regard to the redevelopment, my past experience has been that the developer, especially when you're dealing with high density, and we're talking, Director Costello, up to 20 units per acre or 50 units per acre for high development?
High density is 14 to 30 units per
14.
acre.
So your value, the value of your property is 30 units per acre. I don't think that's not significant in terms of what a future developer would be looking for. So to your concern that your land would diminish in value, I think a developer would look at that if they were developing an adjacent piece of property and see an opportunity to significantly increase their return on investment by packaging that all into one larger parcel.
That has the potential. It does. It also carries the risk that perhaps the individual to the north or a couple of parcels to the north would want to put together a package development concept in their own way, particularly if we had to have access to Harkness Avenue South, which is conversations we've had before. It's now my understanding that maybe, Hardwood Avenue from an access standpoint, but there may be some options to have access to Harkness Avenue moving forward. Nonetheless, ultimately, if we're not a part of the development to our north, in one fashion or another, it's an isolated, single-family parcel that's kind of left in the middle of those apartments.
This is all stipulated on that the neighbors to the north intend to sell.
Correct. There's a lot of different questions out there at the moment, but I did want to bring this to light here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Additional questions or comment? Okay, with that, we will close public hearing. Further discussion? Commissioner Rasmussen?
As I look at this site plan and the different parcels involved, I do wonder a little bit with the two independent developments going in, how likely is it, or how much harder is it going to be to develop those 4 properties to the north without current city utilities? And I believe the road would have to be upgraded quite a bit to get access to those properties. I know we had a third party do some concept planning there, but I'm questioning how likely or how expensive, I guess, it would be, and how likely that would be to become a development down the road.
Planning Commissioner, Chair, and members of the Planning Commission, in terms of the roadway on Harkness, it would be completely developer-driven. You know, in Minnesota, development really pays for itself. So the developer would be responsible for a portion of that road upgrade. Assistant City Engineer Amanda Meyer mentioned that the utilities for those 4 parcels would be at the point to the north, where they would have utility access, and she can correct me if I'm completely wrong. I see her nodding yes. So as you know, we can't predict development and we can't tell people or developers what to do. So they could come in together, they can come in separately. We always encourage them if we know people are interested in selling. If you remember in scenario B, the road kind of dipped to the, depending on how you looked at it, curved to the east. You never know if maybe development on that side becomes part of an assemblage piece on the west side. There's just so many unknowns, so we tried to provide scenarios that we felt best covered how Harkness could possibly go, whether it goes straight through, the road curves, or whether it's 2 kind of cul-de-sacs where each property goes out. With those 4 properties on the west side and the stormwater utility easement, we can't access. It has to come off of Harkness, unfortunately. So I'm not sure that answered your question completely. It's just a lot of unknowns, and unfortunately it's what's before us tonight that we have to look at. We just wanted you to be aware that we're kind of looking at this, realizing it's probably not developing how we all thought back in 2017.
So with any future development of Harkness would be developer-driven and therefore paid through the developer at that time. But let's say nothing happens. Let's say for the next 15 or 20 years, nothing happens. What does the city do in that scenario?
I think,
As far as road maintenance, bringing the trunk line in, that sort of thing.
and that gets in kind of a little bit, I think, into our next agenda item in terms of the CIP. Those are items that come down the future as the community grows and the roadway pavement wears and utilities wear and upgrade. Those are things then we plan for in the future that need to be repaired and fixed.
Would just add it to the normal roadway improvement budget, and it would just kind of get pulled into the schedule like other neighborhoods do?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, if I may add, so the sanitary and the water main extension would be development driven as it relates to the pavement. If nothing were to happen in the next 15, 20 years, we would look to do some sort of pavement maintenance project, just depending on where we're at in that cycle. As Christine mentioned, we do have some sort of a placeholder in our CIP for Harkness Avenue reconstruction, which I'll get into during the next presentation. But it is something that we want to plan for, but it will be based on when development comes and we do the whole sort of kit and caboodle at once, if you will. And we are thinking about that proactively as these developments are coming in one at a time. You know, we are looking to do either collecting some money or doing a deferred assessment agreement on those parcels that are developing for that Harkness reconstruction, because it would most likely be some sort of accessible project. And we'd work with those properties along Harkness during that process.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Frazier?
So I think we've gotten a little distracted from what the actual application was here tonight, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing all the time, because obviously there are important things to talk about. These are people's properties, their homes where their kids grow up. So I think there should be a time to talk about that. And so that the city also knows and is aware of these issues, because they talk to developers who are interested and they can say, we don't want this house sitting in between two apartment buildings. And certainly I don't think developers want a house next to their apartment project. However, the application we have tonight is for a specific property. From my review, it meets all of the requirements. Us as a commission, as well as the council, has decided that this area should be high density. This property meets the high density based on the PUD, I think, because they're under the density, but we're asking them for some consideration on the building materials to make it look nicer. And so I think we should kind of refocus at this point back on the application that we have in front of us tonight. And based on my review, I believe it meets the requirements by the city.
Thank you, Commissioner Frazier. Additional comment? Commissioner Frazier, very well stated. Again, I empathize with the frustration some people feel during development, but you do make a good point. We have a very narrow purview of what we can and cannot do, and given the findings of fact and what was proposed, everything falls within the guidelines of what's permittable. That's my 2 cents. If we've got no further comment, I would look for a motion.
Since I said all that, I guess I'll make a motion to approve the zoning amendment, the preliminary plan, and the site plan, subject to the conditions in the staff report.
We have a motion to approve. Have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Commissioner Wright. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you again for your participation. Again, as I stated before, and I'll state again at the end of the evening here, I'll ask specifically that staff reaches out to you with answers to some of those specific questions you had. Moving on to item 6.3, CIP 2022-2026, case CP 2021-064, with Amanda Meyer presenting.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Really exciting stuff here for you. And as mentioned, the next item on the agenda is the 2022 to 2026 capital improvement plan. It is broken into about 4 sections, and in the interest of time, I'll try and kind of work through this efficiently and definitely be open for questions at the end. So the first section is the public facilities. As noted in both 2023 and 2024, there are items here for both a utilities division building as well as some work down at the existing public works facility. So as part of constructing the new water treatment plant down in the low zone, which is south of 100th Street, we are looking to construct a new building for our utilities division so they can shift from our existing facility down to this new building. That would open up some room in our existing facility for some internal office remodel as well as some storage. But with those specific items being kind of unknown at this point, these are some placeholders until we can figure out the specifics of those pieces. There are some items on here for equipment replacement down at the ice arena. And then there's also a placeholder here for land acquisition for a new compost site. With the business park developing, there is potential of that property being sold, and therefore we need to look to a new site to acquire. Moving into our parks, being that there are quite a few bullets under each year, I'll just look to highlight some of the bigger ticket items. So in 2022, the project I would like to highlight is the Glacial Valley Park. This would be a 3-phase project, and it's located near Ravine Parkway and Keats Avenue. Phase 1 would start in 2023 with grading, utilities, and a soccer field. Phase 2 then would be in 2023 with a playground, parking lot, courts, shelter, and a new building. Also in 2023, some projects to highlight include the potential to build a park at Michaels Point, which is near Jamaica and Ravine Parkway, as well as a park down in the Mississippi Dunes neighborhood, which is the former golf course. Both of these parks would be development driven, so again, sort of placeholder projects. Moving into 2024, we'd look to complete the Glacial Valley Park with Phase 3. That would be the addition of a hockey rink, a free skate area, as well as a ball field. Also want to highlight 100th Street Neighborhood Park. This would be a development-driven park down on the Civic parcel, which is near 100th, Hadley, and 103rd, sort of in that area. And then also want to highlight the construction of ball fields and a parking lot over at the Oltman Middle School. Moving into 2025, I'd like to highlight the Hamlet Park expansion project. This would be the final phase of the Hamlet Park project and is sort of a placeholder. We'd have to reevaluate sort of the needs of the city, the population, those sorts of things before we move forward with that final phase of ball fields, parking lot, and sidewalk construction. And then lastly, for 2026, I'd highlight the East Ravine Neighborhood Park. This would also be a new park, development driven, and on the east side of Keats Avenue. Moving into street projects. So in 2022, we are looking to have another mill and overlay project. Our 2021 mill and overlay project was a huge success. We're happy with the results of that project and are looking forward to having another project here in 2022 with portions of the Thompson Grove neighborhood, as well as a portion of East Point Douglas, just southeast of Jamaica Avenue. Also in 2022, potentially an addition of Ravine Parkway on the Wolterstorff property, just west of Jamaica Avenue, north of 70th Street. This would be a 50% developer cost road project and would be development driven, so it would be built as part of a development on this parcel. Another section of Ravine Parkway that may be constructed in 2022 is part of the Shops at Cottage View project. This could be triggered by a developer, the community center, or official funding through the federal funding process. So this is a bit of a placeholder, if you will, for next year. The next two slides that I present, 100th Street and 105th Street, are also development-driven street projects. These would be as part of the industrial development that could be coming here in the next month. Along 100th Street, we look to add some turn lanes for the additional truck traffic as well as a trail on the south side of the roadway. And 105th Street would be a brand new road just west of Ideal, south of 100th Street, and it would include that roundabout mostly for turning of plow trucks, emergency response vehicles, those sorts of things. And then the last project to highlight for 2022 would be the right-of-way and easement acquisition and the design for the East Point, Douglas, and Jamaica Avenue intersection improvements. We actually would look to then start construction in 2023. Also in 2023, looking to do additional pavement management projects. So in 2023, we'd look for portions of the Thompson Grove Estates neighborhood to be included. There's also potential for an additional segment of Ravine Parkway along what's called the Geist property. Those are the current property owners. Just south of 70th Street and east of Keats Avenue. This is based off of some interest we've heard from developers in purchasing and developing this property. This also would be a 50% developer cost for that roadway construction. Looking then into 2024, again, a pavement management project, additional portions of Thompson Grove Estates, as well as the Prestige Estates neighborhood, which is just north of 80th and west of Keats Avenue. And then we have Harkness Avenue reconstruction. This is a placeholder here in 2024. So development driven really would depend on, which parcels are interested in developing and how that sort of would play out. Just for now, it's a placeholder in 2024 just because we're unsure of, if and when and how many parcels could develop at once. The last project then for 2024, another development driven project. This is on that Civic parcel near 100th Hadley and 103rd Street. The alignment of the roadway that you see is consistent with the county's Southwest Arterial Study. As maybe has been mentioned previously, this is a roadway that the county would eventually take over. For now, it would be more of a 2-lane rural section road as part of this development. Moving into 2025 and 2026, in 2025, we'd look to finish out the 80th Street reconstruction projects with the segment of Ideal to Highway 61. There is the potential of another segment of Ravine Parkway to be constructed on the Kemp parcel, which is just east of Calarosa and west of that Wolterstorff property, which is along Jamaica that we spoke about just a few slides ago. We would look to have pavement management projects both in 2025 and 2026. And then the last 3 bullets you see under 26 would be joint projects with the county, mostly led by the county. So there's a proposed roundabout at 80th and Keats. There's a project at the CASA 19 overpass and West Point Douglas extension, as well as a reconstruction of Jamaica Avenue from 70th to Military. So the last section for you tonight is utility CIP projects. So there's annual stormwater maintenance that we budget for, as well as annual well maintenance. The booster pumps you see here for the Calarosa neighborhood is something that the developer would pay for. That would be Lennar, and the city would just sort of help facilitate that installation of booster pumps. There's been some concerns about water pressure in that area, and so this is more of a developer issue as the city is providing the minimum standard of water pressure in that area. In 2022-2023, we are looking to design and construct a water tower down in our industrial park, as well as do some water tower painting in both of those years. And then the last 3 bullets there are projects related to the 3M settlement, so constructing water treatment plants, raw water lines, extending water to the Goodview neighborhood off of 70th Street, as well as constructing a new well, again, down in that low zone area south of 100th Street. Looking at the sanitary sewer, just some annual sewer maintenance that we budget for, as well as lining a trunk sewer from the Jamaica East Point area down through the dog park. This is something that we likely would see happen over the winter between 2022 and 2023. Some annual streetlight improvements, and then also the last item I promise is traffic signals. These are placeholders. These are intersections that have been identified that may need traffic signals in the future. So we just want to start budgeting for those. We take a look at traffic development in those areas as those years get closer and really start to plan for those more specifically. So with that, I will leave the recommendation and stand for any questions.
Thank you.
Can you repeat all of that?
I tried to keep it below 10 minutes.
That's a lot. You know, I have to commend staff. You guys really do a thorough job putting this stuff together. So thank you. I would say I have questions, but you did a pretty thorough job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Additional questions or comment?
One question, please, and I'm just curious. I think on the County Road 19 project, there was a pretty big placeholder there. What, with the new overpass, is that city or county funds, or how does that 22 million, what are we looking at there?
Great question. So I believe most of that is county, but if you don't mind, I'm gonna just use my cheat sheet here really quickly. And I can tell you more specifically. Should have tapped that one. So this would be, right now we are estimating 4 million in state aid funding, 8 million in Washington County funding, and then roughly 10 million in federal grant funding, and then some utility funds as well. So it's sort of a combination of funding for that project.
But it sounds like it's money, it's not coming out of our, a majority of it's not coming out of our pocket?
Correct. That is correct, Mr. Chair, members of the commission.
And that would be to help the new development that potentially going in that corner.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you. Additional questions or comment?
I just have a question. It's more so out of curiosity and partnership with different parts of our city. So when we were looking at like playgrounds and that sort of thing, are like homeowners associations, are they involved in any of those conversations? Or just Oltman was the other one so that would be like a school district property. How does that partnership work out between city or an HOA or the county and the city? And I'm just curious.
That is a great question for our Park and Rec director. So I am happy to make a note and get some information I can pass it along to you on how those specific discussions work.
Thank you. All right. Commissioner Wright?
Without going down a rabbit hole, what dictates what streets start getting this kind of attention and when? Like as far as like Thompson Estates or like, you know, some of it's development driven. I get that part of it, but just curiosity. If it's another 10 minutes, don't worry about it, but.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, so as we speak specifically about pavement management projects or mill and overlay projects, we're looking really at the age of the roadways. We have started this year to do what's called a PACER rating of our roadways, and our hope is over the next 4 years to be able to go through and rate all those roadways. It's a pretty instant gratification type of system, so it's rated on a 0 to 10 based on the existing conditions of that roadway, and we're able to then use those ratings, if we continue to complete those ratings, to really be able to propose the best maintenance for each of these roads. So really trying to take a look at existing conditions, make sure we're proposing effective but also financially efficient projects as they come along. Development-driven ones are just based on, you know, rumblings that we hear of, you know, developers are looking to purchase land, and we've maybe seen some concepts, and so we're trying to sort of guess on when those might actually hit for Planning Commission review or City Council review.
For all intents and purposes, like a lot of those, I mean, they do need attention, so they're rightfully so. So I'm just curious. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. If that's that, then we'll open it up for public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against the application may step to the podium. State your name and address for the record, please.
I get to ask questions. Yay. Bonnie Matter, 6649 Inskip Avenue South, Cottage Grove. This is my question. I didn't see Inwood Avenue South up on any list. And that's the one where we're by Calarosa, okay? And we've got the Ravine Parkway. And they were going, I thought, we're going to close off Inwood Avenue South. But now they've left it open because that Ravine Parkway doesn't run through. So I was wondering when we were going to look at doing some updating on that road.
All right, let's wrap up all the questions you might have, and then we can have staff address them.
One.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission. So I will note the area that this resident is speaking about is adjacent to, oh, I just suppose I don't have a map for that one. Sorry if
That's
I'm
where the
making
road
you
turns
dizzy
back
as
south, I believe.
So the Calarosa neighborhood is directly to the west of the Kemp parcel, which we're proposing potentially an extension of Ravine Parkway through that parcel in 2025. As it relates specifically to Inwood, I believe the resident is correct that we have closed off Inwood just based on that Ravine Parkway extension. As far as the existing Inwood and the proposed improvements, right now it's not included in any CIP project over the next 5 years, but it is something we could take a look at and reevaluate if necessary.
All the traffic is.
So, to address her question, I think she was under the impression that it was going to be terminated, but it hasn't been yet. So I think, if I can restate her question, it was, when would that Inwood be closed down? Is that as Ravine Parkway gets completed, then they'll terminate that section? Is that accurate?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I believe Ravine Parkway through the Calarosa development has been completed. So the segment of Inwood between Ravine Parkway and what used to be 65th Street should have been removed already, as that section of 65th Street was removed. So Ravine Parkway sort of, I guess, meanders north now through that Calarosa development. So there was a segment of 65th Street that was removed. And so then the section of Inwood that was there previously should have already been removed. But I can take a look at that.
Could we maybe have staff reach out to her and get a follow-up?
Yep.
All right. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against the application may step to the podium and do so. Seeing none, we will close public hearing. Further questions or comment from the commission? Seeing none, I would look for a motion.
I'd motion to approve the CIP 2021-064.
I have a motion to approve from Commissioner Rasmussen. Do we have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Commissioner Bigham. Further discussion? Just wanted to say thanks for all your preparation and time putting that report together. There's no further comment, then we'll take it to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. On item 6.4, TIF boundary expansion M2021-065 with Director Costello presenting.
Good evening, Planning Commission members. It's great to be back. It's been a while. I was just talking to Councilmember Dennis. I think 2019 was the last time I was here with you. So it'd be nice to be back in the room with you. So to begin, the TIF boundary expansion. This is kind of a unique item. As you know, the City of Cottage Grove and the EDA has always worked to position ourselves for growth in the community. And one of the ways sometimes we help with that growth is financial assistance. And that can kind of help move development forward. And a tool in our toolbox that we have is tax increment financing. So it's one of the most commonly used types of assistance that we can use for development efforts. So TIF provides the ability to capture and use most of the increased local property tax revenues from a new development within a defined geographic area for a defined period of time. So you may have heard over the years, we have different kinds of TIF districts which have different year requirements. In addition, there's a Minnesota state statute that allows cities to create development districts within the boundaries of their city. These development districts provide the authority for cities to complete development and redevelopment within the community, and then develop and implement redevelopment programs, and then create those actual TIF districts. So for the city and the EDA to provide financing programs, loans, tax increment, or grant projects moving forward, the city and the EDA has to create a project area or a development district. And then there's a corresponding plan under specific statutory authority. That plan defines a public purpose for promoting development and redevelopment within the city and defines the boundaries of the project area or that development district. So back in 1985 is when the city established their development district. And it only covered a small portion of the city. You can kind of see this is the actual plan from 85. It was modified in 86. But since 1986, the city's grown significantly. The city and the EDA may like to provide in the future various financing programs to spur a redevelopment or a new development in the future. And in order to do that, we're looking to amend our development district boundaries. So our financial consultant, Ellers, recommended that we expand the boundary to include the entire corporate boundaries of the city. So it's the dashed blue line. What's shaded in green was that former 1986 boundary. So this boundary then provides us the opportunity, we often create smaller TIF districts on a particular parcel, one or two parcels. Without including the entire city, anything that's outside of that green area, we couldn't potentially use TIF or any funds we receive from TIF, any kind of assistance in the future that the EDA or city council would want to provide for redevelopment opportunities. The role of the Planning Commission is to provide a recommendation to City Council that expanding the boundaries would be consistent with the development plans we've seen in the city and are guided by the city's comprehensive plan. And as we've moved forward through the years, we've seen development take place outside of that area, and our 2040 land use plan kind of guides us for that future development, which we've seen outside of that green area. Some of the East Ravine areas and so forth haven't been previously included. So with that, as a recommendation before you, and I can take any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the commission? Commissioner Rasmussen.
So what are the steps if someone's going to apply for TIF financing? Who makes the final decisions? What are the steps the developer may take to obtain that type of financing?
Members of the Planning Commission, the first step is usually a developer will contact city staff. They'll share with us their proposal. And if they ask for TIF, a lot of times developers will say, hey, will you provide TIF? We ask to see their pro forma or their sources and uses, how they're looking to develop and fund their project. We share that with our financial consultants. There is something called a but-for test as part of TIF. But for this, the development would not happen. So there are standards that they need to meet. We also have what we call a business subsidy policy that the EDA reviews. The last time it was updated is in 2017. That has certain specific requirements that the EDA wants to see. Certain jobs created, redevelopment in specific areas. We're looking for that job creation. Ultimately, we want people to work here, live here, you know, and spend their money here. So that business subsidy policy does that. If it meets all of those things, we take it before the EDA for consideration, and then ultimately to the city council. In between there's a lot of legal stuff, but it's something we want to work with the developer hand in hand. Is it the best for the community? Does it meet our comprehensive plan in terms of the land use? So it's a joint partnership. TIF isn't just automatically given to any project that comes forward. It's something that we definitely vet.
With the stringent review and selection of who's getting the TIF, I don't see why we wouldn't want to encompass the entire city in that boundary.
And my thought on it was, with every 10 years, our plan for the city gets tweaked, you know, as consumer demands change, as the economy changes, as our needs as a city change. you know, we don't know what's coming down the line, so why would we limit ourselves by not allowing, you know, a leg up for investment in certain parts of our city, city, but not others? So I think it's a smart decision, and as you had stated, it kind of complies with kind of standard of practice for most cities our size. Is that correct?
That is correct. Most cities encompass their entire boundary and don't limit it to a certain area, because within that, as I stated, you have those certain TIF districts for a certain project. So it kind of twofold.
Thank you. Additional questions or comment? Commissioner Frazier?
So just as a background, because I think you talked about kind of job creation as being one of the things we look for in TIF financing. So safe to say that when the city is looking at providing TIF, it's usually an industrial or a commercial use.
That is correct. Most of the time, we've used TIF for industrial projects. That's through called an economic development TIF district, and that's a maximum of 9 years. They're for certain type of industrial uses. Then it gets into whether it's a green acre parcel or not, and jobs are required. But one of the things we do require is they have to create a job, at least one job, full-time, at 200% of the minimum wage, and that includes benefits. So that's very important. That's been very important to the EDA and City Council, as I stated before, those jobs are being created here.
Sure. And so as part of the 2040 comprehensive plan, I think there was some sections of that talked about areas of the city that we wanted to focus development for, mostly commercial development. And so I guess part of my question then is, if we're worried about the TIF portion of this for the most part, for this development boundary, is there a reason we're not just saying is there a reason we're not highlighting these specific areas we said in the comprehensive plan, here's where we want to drive growth for commercial use?
Not sure I completely understand your question, but
sure.
We do, you know, we want to redevelop those areas, and by having some of those TIF funds through admin, some of it we can use elsewhere. For example, the Hy-Vee development, that wouldn't have happened without TIF. That's a TIF project. That's a redevelopment project.
Sure, and this is probably a bad question, so I'll rephrase it. So is there a reason why we're doing the entire city boundary rather than 80th and Keats, or, you know,
for instance,
a specific corner that we've highlighted as this is where we want people to come in and have the mixed use and have a commercial node that we've highlighted in the 2040 comprehensive plan?
I gotcha. Thank you. Yep. Appreciate it. Caffeine's kicking in. The reason we chose the entire city instead of those specific areas like 80th and East Point and 80th and Jamaica is maybe there's a future program that the EDA wants to provide existing businesses to redevelop an area. By limiting to just that area, we can't provide that program to other commercial areas in the community, such as 70th and Keats, or, you know, shops at Cottage View down the line as the future happens, or something down closer to River Oaks. There's some commercial areas guided down there. By limiting it, then we can't serve some of the other development opportunities we have. So we would just want to be kind of in whole, look at the community instead of just completely focused. Those are focus areas, but we don't want to forget about everybody else too.
Okay. So then, I guess I'll give you the background to all this. I had some time, so I did look up Minnesota statute 469.126.
Gotcha.
Earlier today. Slow day at work today.
Guess so.
And so my point in talking about this is it does provide the ability to create TIF districts, but it also provides a bunch of other powers to the city under that statute. And so I guess my thought is, if we're really concerned about making sure that we have these districts available to, or these development boundary districts in order to provide TIF funding, why not, if that's the only reason we're really concerned about it, why not try to hide or make these districts around where we have it zoned for commercial or where we have it zoned for industrial, rather than everywhere in the city, which would probably, which also includes then residential properties and other things like that?
We want to include the entire city because we don't know what the future holds. We do have a large industrial user coming in south of 100th Street. They have asked for TIF. That's the potential to bring jobs to the community. I just think by doing it as the whole, we're not forgetting anybody. We have the ability to use programs throughout the community. We're not just limiting it. If we stuck to the current boundary or just those two commercial nodes, then any development moving forward has to come back through and always amend this boundary. This boundary just kind of sets it, but yet then when we come in to do each individual TIF project, we would look at that specifically. So this just gives us the ability kind of, yes, we have it, we allow it, but yet we're gonna look exactly that specific area or those parcels. So if something came, say at Target in that area, we would pull just those target or properties, parcels would just be that TIF district. So it's kind of layers.
Okay, I'm done grilling you, so thank you.
Can I start grilling you?
Okay.
Councilman Dennis.
Thank you. I had one thing to add in. This is really a structure thing to make sure that we're set for future opportunities, plain and simple. What Christine talked about were a lot of good points. There's one additional piece, and that is the city wants to get the highest and best use, right? We've heard that term before, out of every opportunity and potential that we have. So to structure appropriately and then, you know, seek to use TIF as a tool in a toolbox of many different options, this gives us the maximal opportunity to achieve success. And really, that to me is what it's all about. And you know, a lot of times people don't understand what tax increment financing is. It allows us through the but-for test to say that if we provide some guided assistance at the beginning of a project, what will end up happening is that by the time that lifetime goes through for that TIF, we will end up with a whole lot more than what we would have simply had nothing taken place. And so when you kind of study these things, and there's some really cool videos you can watch on YouTube or check out some of the graphics online, you'll see there's often an X pattern that is represented. And it starts out during the course of the lifetime of the TIF district, and it deals with, you know, either some incentive money that was put in, and what we TIF for basically is going to be a lot of times infrastructure. So various pieces, you know, water, sewer, power connectivity, getting your internet and various other things stubbed in and ready to go, so that we have, you know, sites that that can be workable and help to achieve more of a shovel-ready condition, because for a lot of the investors, time is money, time is important, and they want to get going on projects. So this allows us to work that through the period of the time that that X is in display as we go through the years. What ends up happening is we do get that money back eventually, but yet we now have developed spaces that are generating maximal tax capacity. We're having jobs, we're having other types of opportunities in the community. So it really is a very good thing for us to use when it's appropriate to do so. And I just don't think there'd ever be a circumstance where we do anything with TIF with residential. I don't think that's how that works.
No, most likely, you know, we use TIF for industrial. There's redevelopment TIF districts. That was part of the Hy-Vee project. But to my knowledge, we haven't used a housing TIF district here in Cottage Grove.
Thank you. Additional questions? Real quick, my one question was, off the top of your head, are there any examples of instances where somebody's asked for TIF financing and they've been rejected because the project didn't meet our standard?
In my time here, no, but we definitely push back. You know, what they present, we don't automatically say, yep, you get it. We really push them, well, why do you want it? You know, you have to prove to us. So it's not an easy road to get. We definitely put a developer through the hurdles. And it's something that we've vetted through our finance director, you know, city administrator, our financial consultant. It's not something we take lightly, I would say. But in my knowledge, I'm not aware of anything.
Okay, thank you. Additional questions or comment? If none, then I would look for a motion.
Motion to approve the boundary expansion to include corporate boundaries of the city.
We have a motion to approve from Commissioner Bigham. Do we have a second? I'll second. Further discussion? All right. Seeing no further discussion, I'll put it up to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. On to item 7. Approval of Planning Commission minutes for July 26, 2021. If there are no amendments or changes, I would look for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve from Commissioner Commissioner Fisher. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Wright. Further discussion? No amendments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Item 8, reports. 8.1, recap of August and September council meetings.
Members of the Planning Commission, I have quite a few to go through here. So on August 4th City Council meeting, there was approval of Settlers Bluff final plat and development agreement, as well as Smallage Fields, the preliminary plat and final plat. There was a public hearing on Hinton Woods for some vacation easement vacation, final plat and development agreement. That was also approved. The City Council held a special meeting on August 11th to go over the budget. And then the next meeting was August 18th. Basic Needs Thrift Store, conditional use permit, that was approved. Eastbrook 3rd Edition, the final plat and development agreement was also approved. And then on the regular agenda, Innovative Chemical Corporation, which had a site plan review on Industrial Park, that was approved as well. Then for the September 1st City Council meeting, there were no previous Planning Commission items on that agenda. And then for the September 15th, approval of the Rolling Meadows final plat and development agreement and development plans, that was approved. And that is it for Planning Commission items that were on the previous City Council meetings.
All right, thank you very much. Item 8.2, response to Planning Commission inquiries. I don't believe we had any. And then, I'm sorry, I'm going to back up. Councilman Dennis, we didn't give you an opportunity to speak.
Well, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I will answer any question that you might have of me except for insights into fantasy football. This week I'm going to be 0-2, so yeah, not good. So any questions you might have of me, I'll be happy to address.
Any questions from the commission? All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Back to 8.2, no responses to Planning Commission inquiries. And item 8.3, Planning Commission requests. I'll start with response to some of the public hearings we had tonight, as noted in our minutes. If staff could just go back and address those property owners and make sure that their questions are addressed.
Definitely.
And any additional requests from the commission? All right, on to item 9. I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn from Commissioner Rasmussen. Do you have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Bigham. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Have a good evening.